Hey everyone, it's Hirsch Wilson, and today is January 16th, Saturday. I want to start with a story. So, a few decades ago, my fire department, Hondo, Volunteer Fire Department, responded to a rollover on a frontage road pretty close to where we live. So, two of us got on scene pretty quickly, and we found an SUV upside down in the snow on the road. So, we crouched down and found the driver, who was underneath the car, but he was conscious and talking to us. And before we could organize a plan on how to get him out, he crawled out from underneath the car. We helped him get up, and we walked him over to the ambulance that had just arrived. We could smell alcohol on his breath, and there were beer cans strewn over the road. Now that year, we had had a number of DUI crashes, and a couple of them had been fatalities. So we were relieved that this guy was all right. We walked him over to the ambulance, got him up, and the EMT sat him on the cot. And Dan and I were about ready to leave. And then he said something. He said words that have haunted me to this day. He said, "Hey, how's my girlfriend?" Dan and I looked at each other. We had had no evidence that there was somebody else in that truck. So we got down, we called some other firefighters and said we need to do a search. So first we searched the sides of the road, found nothing, and then we spread out. And I was assigned to go look in a field covered with snow right next to where the rollover was. And about 30 feet away from the roadbed, we found her. She was laying face down in the snow, arms and legs stretched out, and she was dead. Forever she was known in our department as our snow angel. Seeing her there, after so many DUI fatalities in the previous couple of years, something inside me snapped. I was just filled with a righteous anger. And I stormed back to the ambulance, fully intent on telling the driver that we found your girlfriend and she's dead. But before I could step up in the ambulance, the cop who was interviewing him gave me this stern look that said, "Don't even think about it." So I stopped, and then Dan came up to me and grabbed me by the shoulders. He was our chief at the time, and said, "There's nothing more you can do here. Why don't you just go home?" So I got in my car, and I drove home. My house was about 3 miles from the accident site. It was snowing. It was slow going, and so I had a lot of time to think. And I was still just in a rage. And this is how memory works. All of a sudden, this memory popped into my mind about a time when I was 18, and I was driving my girlfriend home in a blizzard. We had both had a beer, and all of a sudden, on the interstate, I lost control of the car, and we did a 360 on the roadbed. We didn't go into the ditch, we didn't hit another car, and all of a sudden, we were pointed straight and going forward. And we both laughed. And I thought about it. The only difference between the driver of that SUV and me was I probably had better tires. It was a humbling and humiliating moment to realize that I had been so judgmental about someone who had done something that I had also done. Right now in our country, we are in the throes of righteousness. We live in our opinion and fact bubbles. We rarely seek out the opinions of others that are different from us. Driving this is our desire to be right and our fear of being wrong. It's a seductive feeling, that feeling of righteousness. But more realistically, the sense of righteousness, that absolute certainty that you are right, can also be a tip-off that we're missing some information. We live in a complex and multifaceted world. There's always, and that's a word I rarely use, a different way of looking at things. In Zen practice, they teach the idea of the middle way, the center between seemingly polar opposites. Although it's difficult to do, especially when tempers are running hot, it's probably the best and most creative way to bring us together to find solutions. But it requires us to let go of our egos and to let go of that sense of righteousness. A practical example of the middle way was Hillary Clinton's position on abortion. She wrote that what we need to do in this country is continually reduce the number of abortions, but at the same time, always respect a woman's right to choose the middle way. A final thought. As I think and observe how righteous we've become, including me, how convinced we are that the other side is wrong, I think about the words of Oliver Cromwell, who in the 17th century was the Lord Protectorate of the English Commonwealth. In 1650, he wrote a letter to the Scottish royalty about who should be king. Sound familiar? And in the letter he said, "I beseech you, from the bowels of Christ, think that you might be mistaken." Pretty good advice. So be brave, be kind, and fight fires. Finally, I want to thank you all so much. The first printing of my book, Firefighter Zen, has sold out. And the second printing is happening as we speak. So again, thank you so much for your support.